Section 25 of the Letters of Jane Austen. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Letter 57. 23 Hans Place, Tuesday morning, August, 1814. My dear Cassandra, I had a very good journey, not crowded, 2 of the 3 taken up at Bentley being children, the others of a reasonable size, and they were all very quiet and civil. We were late in London, from being a great load, and from changing coaches at Farnham. It was nearly 4, I believe, when we reached Sloane Street. Henry himself met me, and as soon as my trunk and basket could be routed out from all the other trunks and baskets in the world, we were on our way to Hans Place, in the luxury of a nice, large, cool, dirty hackney coach. There were 4 in the kitchen part of Yalden, and I was told 15 at top, among them Percy Benn. We met in the same room at Egham, but poor Percy was not in his usual spirits. He would be more chatty, I dare say, in his way from Woolwich. We took up a young Gibson at Holborn, and in short, everybody either did come up by Yalden yesterday, or wanted to come up. It put me in mind of my own coach between Edinburgh and Stirling. Henry is very well, and has given me an account of the Canterbury races, which seem to have been as pleasant as one could wish. Everything went well. Fanny had good partners. Mr. was her second on Thursday, but he did not dance with her any more. This will content you for the present. I must just add, however, that there were no Lady Charlottes, they were gone off to Kirby, and that Mary Oxenden, instead of dying, is going to marry William Hammond. No James and Edward yet. Our evening yesterday was perfectly quiet. We only talked a little to Mr. Tilson across the intermediate gardens. She was gone out airing with Miss Burdett. It is a delightful place, more than answers my expectation. Having got rid of my unreasonable ideas, I find more space and comfort in the rooms than I had supposed, and the garden is quite a love. I am in the front attic, which is the bedchamber to be preferred. Henry wants you to see it all, and asked whether you would return with him from Hampshire. I encouraged him to think you would. He breakfasts here early, and then rides to Henrietta Street if it continues fine. John is to drive me there by and by, and we shall take an airing together, and I do not mean to take any other exercise, for I feel a little tired after my long jumble. I live in his room downstairs. It is particularly pleasant from opening upon the garden. I go and refresh myself every now and then come back to solitary coolness. There is one maidservant only, a very creditable, clean-looking young woman. Richard remains for the present. Wednesday morning. My brother and Edward arrived last night. They could not get places the day before. Their business is about teeth and wigs, and they are going after breakfast to Scarman's in Tavistock Street, and they are to return to go with me afterwards in the barouche. I hope to do some of my errands to day. I got the willow yesterday, as Henry was not quite ready when I reached Henner Street. I saw Mr. Hampson there for a moment. He dines here to-morrow, and proposed bringing his son, so I must submit to seeing George Hampson, though I had hoped to go through life without it. It was one of my vanities, like your not reading Patronage. After leaving H Street, we drove to Mrs. Latouche's. They are always at home, and they are to dine here on Friday. We could do no more, as it began to rain. We dine at 4:30 to-day, that our visitors may go to the play, and Henry and I are to spend the evening with the Tilsons, to meet Miss Burnett, who leaves town to-morrow. Mrs. T. called on me yesterday. Is not this all that can have happened or been arranged? Not quite. Henry wants me to see more of his Hanwell favorite, and has written to invite her to spend a day or 2 here with me. His scheme is to fetch her on Saturday. I am more and more convinced that he will marry again soon, and like the idea of her better than of anybody else at hand. Now I have breakfasted, and have the room to myself again. It is likely to be a fine day. How do you all do? Henry talks of being at Chawton about the 1st of September. He has once mentioned a scheme which I should rather like, calling on the Birches and the Crutchleys in our way. It may never come to anything, but I must provide for the possibility by troubling you to send my silk pelisse by Collier on Sunday. I feel it would be necessary on such an occasion, and be so good as to put up a clean dressing gown, which will come from the wash on Friday. You need not direct it to be left anywhere. It may take its chance. We are to call for Henry between 3 and 4, and I must finish this and carry it with me, as he is not always there in the morning before the parcel is made up. And before I set off, I must return Mrs. Tilson's visit. I hear nothing of the Hoblins, and abstain from all inquiry. I hope Mary Jane and Frank's gardens go on well. Give my love to them all. Nunna Hat's love to George. A great many people wanted to run up in the coach as well as me. The wheat looked very well all the way, and James says the same of his road. The same good account of Mrs. C.'s health continues, and her circumstances mend. She gets farther and farther from poverty. What a comfort! Good-bye to you. Yours very truly and affectionately, Jane. All well at Steventon. I hear nothing particular of Ben, except that Edward is to get him some pencils. Letter 58. My dear Anna, I am very much obliged to you for sending your manuscript. It has entertained me extremely, indeed, all of us. I read it aloud to your grandmamma and Aunt Cass, and we were very much pleased. The spirit does not droop at all. Sir Thomas, Lady Helen, and St. Julian are very well done, and Cecilia continues to be interesting in spite of her being so amiable. It is very fit you should advance her age. I like the beginning of Devereux Forester very much, a great deal better than if he had been very good or very bad. A few verbal corrections are all that I felt tempted to make. The principal of them is a speech of St. Julian to Lady Helen, which you see I have presumed to alter. As Lady H. is Cecilia's superior, it would not be correct to talk of her being introduced. It is Cecilia who must be introduced. And I do not like a lover speaking in the third person. It is too much like the part of Lord Overtley, and I think it not natural. If you think differently, however, you need not mind me. I am impatient for more, and only wait for a safe conveyance to return this. Yours affectionately, J. A. Letter 59. August 10th, 1814. My dear Anna, I am quite ashamed to find that I have never answered some question of yours in a former note. I kept it on purpose to refer to it at a proper time, and then forgot it. I like the name, Which is the Heroine, very well, and I dare say shall grow to like it very much in time, but enthusiasm was something so very superior that my common title must appear to disadvantage. I am not sensible of any blunders about Dawlish. The library was pitiful and wretched 12 years ago, and not likely to have anybody's publications. There is no such title as Desborough, either among dukes, marquises, earls, viscounts, or barons. These were your inquiries. I will now thank you for your envelope received this morning. Your Aunt Cass is as well pleased with St. Julian as ever, and I am delighted with the idea of seeing Progillian again. Wednesday, 17th. We have now just finished the first of the 3 books I had the pleasure of receiving yesterday. I read it aloud, and we were all very much amused, and I like the work quite as well as ever. I depend on getting through another book before dinner, but there is really a good deal of respectable reading in your 48 pages. I have no doubt 6 would make a very good-sized volume. You must have been quite pleased to have accomplished so much. I like Lord Portman and his brother very much. I am only afraid that Lord P.'s good nature will make most people like him better than he deserves. The whole family are very good, and Lady Anne, who is your great dread, you have succeeded particularly well with. Belle Griffin is just what she should be. My corrections have not been more important than before. Here and there we have thought the sense could be expressed in fewer words, and have scratched out Sir Thomas from walking with the others to the stables, etc., the very day after breaking his arm; for though I find your papa did walk out immediately after his arm was set, I think it can be so little usual as to appear unnatural in a book. Lynn will not do. Lynn is 40 miles from Dawlish, and would not be talked of there. I have put Starcross instead. If you prefer Easton, that must always be safe. I have also scratched out the introduction between Lord Portman and his brother and Mr. Griffin. A country surgeon (don't tell Mr. C. Lyford) would not be introduced to men of their rank, and when Mr. P. is first brought in, he would not be introduced as the Honourable. That distinction is never mentioned at such times, at least I believe not. Now we have finished the second book, or rather the fifth. I do think you had better omit Lady Helena's postscript. To those that are acquainted with Pride and Prejudice it will seem an imitation. And your Aunt C. and I both recommend your making a little alteration in the last scene between Devereux F. and Lady Clanmurray and her daughter. We think they press him too much, more than sensible or well-bred women would do. Lady C. at least should have discretion enough to be sooner satisfied with his determination of not going with them. I am very much pleased with Egerton as yet. I did not expect to like him, but I do, and Susan is a very nice little animated creature. But St. Julian is the delight of our lives. He is quite interesting. The whole of his break-off with Lady Helena is very well done. Yes, Russell Square is a very proper distance from Berkeley Square. We are reading the last book. They must be 2 days going from Dawlish to Bath. They are nearly 100 miles apart. Thursday. We finished it last night after our return from drinking tea at the great house. The last chapter does not please us quite so well. We do not thoroughly like the play, perhaps from having had too much of plays in that way lately, vide Mansfield Park, and we think you had better not leave England. Let the Portmans go to Ireland, but as you know nothing of the manners there, you had better not go with them. You will be in danger of giving false representations. Stick to Bath and the Foresters. There you'll be quite at home. Your Aunt C. does not like desultory novels, and is rather afraid yours will be too much so, that there will be too frequently a change from one set of people to another, and that circumstances will be introduced of apparent consequence which will lead to nothing. It will not be so great an objection to me if it does. I allow much more latitude than she does, and think nature and spirit cover many sins of a wandering story, and people in general do not care so much about it for your comfort. I should like to have had more of Devereux. I do not feel acquainted enough with him. You were afraid of meddling with him, I dare say. I like your sketch of Lord Clanmurray, and your picture of the 2 young girls' enjoyment is very good. I have not noticed St. Julian's serious conversation with Cecilia, but I like it exceedingly. What he says about the madness of otherwise sensible women on the subject of their daughters coming out is worth its weight in gold. I do not perceive that the language sinks. Pray go on. End of section 25.